Hey there, welcome back. My name's Ryan. In this video, we're going to review the board game Yarrr Har Hunt. Now, you might be thinking, Ryan, that looks like a kid's game. And you're right, it is a kid's game. Now you're probably thinking, well, aren't all kids' games terrible and horrible? And yeah, I'm kind of with you. When I first hear the word kids' game, I'm thinking, okay, classic board games that we played when we were children, or games that are fun if you're playing them with children and, they're having a good time, but maybe games that aren't really great by themselves. Well, we're looking at Yarrr Har Hunt today, which I think is actually a pretty decent game, especially a good game to teach kids a lot of stuff about board gaming. Now, I'm guessing you don't know how it works when I start this out with just a explanation of the rules. If somehow you already know how it plays, you can skip ahead to the review. But if you don't know how it plays, I really suggest you stick around. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see how the gameplay works. Alright, so the board is out and I'm going to show you an example of a 3-player game. We have Captain Casey here, Netto Noodle, and Peg Leg Larry. All 3 pirates begin on the space labeled Start. Now, since we're doing 3 players, we have 3 treasures. These treasures are secret. They really don't matter. They're not unique. They're just kind of fun little surprises to see which one you're going to get throughout the game. Now you're going to draw 3 random clue cards, which all have symbols on them. These symbols match spaces around the board. So for example, there's a shovel, that X right there. There's a sword right there. Now I showed you, but these would actually be randomly assigned, 3 of them on each treasure chest, so the players would not necessarily know what location they have to go to find that treasure. You will then flip the top one of each pile. And in order to get to any of these treasure chests, you must find all 3 clues. For example, to get the first clue out here, we have to visit the mountains. Once a player touches the mountains, this clue gets discarded and we see what's next. In which case it's the shovel. Now our pirate ship is coming to pick us up. It's going to start here. When our pirate ship reaches the shore, the game is over. So before the ship gets to the shore, our pirates have to find all 9 clues sitting on these treasures. Now, it doesn't matter which pirate finds which clue, all players share the treasures at the end. So one player could technically pick up all 3 treasures. In order to move, you're going to be drawing chips out of this bag right here. Let's say Captain Casey is up first, and they reach into the bag and draw a 2. It's not a great move, but she starts heading in this direction, hopes of getting the compass soon. Now Peg Leg Larry goes and he draws a 3. He doesn't want to go in the same direction, so he decides to move this way. Now Netto Noodle goes and he draws a 1. Now in the back of all the 1s there's a colored shell. Now these colored shells correspond to the colored spaces throughout the board. So Netto Noodle can now warp to any of these colored spaces in the board. Let's say he goes up here just so he can spread out a little bit. Now, everything I just showed you looks like a pretty bland game. There's a little bit of cooperation with realizing you should spread out. You shouldn't clump up in one area. You shouldn't have 2 people going for the same treasure. Have to kind of coordinate who goes for what. But there's one big thing about the game that makes it a lot more interesting. Let's say we have this setup right here. Captain Casey over here is 5 spaces away from getting to her compass, and Netto Noodle is just 1 space from the starfish, but it's Netto Noodle's turn. He draws a 5. Now, clearly going 1 and flipping over the starfish, seeing the next thing would be helpful. Now we know we got to the palm trees and we're 1 closer to getting this treasure. But it's also kind of a waste to use a 5 to only take 1 movement to get to that starfish. So anytime a player wants to, they are allowed to pass actions to another player. So in this example, Netto Noodle will be much better off using this 5 and moving Captain Casey instead to this compass. Because you only have so many good rolls, like a 5 or a 6, in this bag. Whenever you get a good one, you want to make the best use of your movements as possible. Alright, so that's how it works. Let's jump right into some positives here. First of all, it's a kids game that teaches them something. It sounds terrible. I hate when people say that about kids' games because often they say, oh, Candyland's not good, but at least teaching them how to match some colors together, which may be true for a couple plays when they're really little, but often when games just use that excuse, it teaches them something. It means it's not probably a great game. This is a little different. It's not teaching what we typically think of as, oh, teaching them how to count to 6 when they roll the dice. It does do that. You pick the numbers out of a bag and teaches you how to add up how many numbers there are and move your guy. For sure, it does that. But what this game does is it teaches them cooperation. Now, I'm not saying if you have your kids play this, they won't fight anymore. It might not do that. But so many games that are kids' games really focus on winning, being competitive, which is fine. Like, it's fun to play a game, try to outsmart your opponent, have a winner. It's totally fine. It's also good for kids to learn that they lose sometimes. But this game focuses on cooperation. It makes them think in a different way. It makes them evaluate their turn differently. So, for example, a common thing that happens in this game is you are one away from one of the spots that you get the goal. Remember, anyone can pick up any of the treasures. You all share your treasure. Everyone is just trying to get to all the cards together. So let's say you are one away from getting to the location on the board you need to get to, but your teammate is 4 away from theirs. Well, you draw 5. Most kids, and lots of adults actually, selfishly want to be the one to get the treasure for themselves, even though it doesn't really matter who does it. It doesn't matter at all. But people want to be the one to say, I got that. Well, sometimes you do that. You take your movement of 5 and you go 1. Your turn ends. You get the treasure card. You're happy. Your teammate then draws a 2 and they go 1, 2. They can't quite make it. It comes down to them again and they roll 1. They don't want to use the warp, so they go 1. It took them 3 turns to get there. This game, Yarrr Har Hunt, does a pretty good job of teaching cooperation in the sense of, really when you pick that over, you should have said, hey, I'm 1 away. How about I use my movement for you? We'll get you your treasure. Can you use your movement for me on your turn if you get a bad roll? If you get, or not a roll, but a pick. If you get a good pick, you can use it for someone else. It really teaches this team, how to make some sacrifices for the team, how to shift around what you draw, because it has the idea of you can shift what you give. You can always give it to one of your teammates. So it makes the drawing, as you play the game, you realize that the game is really easy if you're freely sharing your movements. But not only does it teach cooperation in the passing of the numbers and the movements back and forth, but also just in the overall strategy of your board. You see your whole board. There's a lot of locations you could go, but you only have so many cards revealed at a time. Well, let's say there's a player who's pretty close to the compass. Over here, there's a player who's a little closer, and another player who's a little further away. This player rolls. Sometimes if no one can quite get to that compass on their turn, the best move is not to move towards the compass, but it's to take your character and just move up here into no man's land, because the odds of one of these things being revealed is pretty high, especially if there's only 3 players and 2 of them are in the corner together down here. You need to spread out. A good strategy is to not have your people all clumped together, because you play the game with the kids. I would suggest if you play them with the kids, let them make their own decisions. Let them kind of see how the game works for themselves. And then when someone draws a card and they go, oh, we're all 3 here. No one's over here by the treasure chest, or no one's over here by the waterfalls. They'll start to realize, okay, maybe what we should do next time is spread out a little bit. So kids can it's at their level where they can start to make these realizations, which are applicable to life. You can apply them to board games too. If you play co-op board games as adults, there are those same ideas that show up in those. Hey, I have this +2 attack on my weapon, but you're the one's going to be fighting hand to hand more. I'll give that to you. Or I have this special, things are cheaper at the market. But you know what? How about you do all the shopping? We'll all give you our shopping items so you can do all the buying and you can spread around. These same ideas that show up in pretty simple ways in this game. Now for flaws, it's a kid's game, so there isn't any of these huge game-breaking flaws. It's also cooperative, so there's nothing one player can take advantage of and run away with. I guess one thing that bothers me is it's really, really easy. The kids can not necessarily cooperate well and typically come away with the victory. When I play the game, I've noticed one way to fix this is it's very easy to just make your own difficulty level. You can take things out of the bag, certain numbers. You can put in the ship tokens back into the bag. You can have the boat start out closer to the island so you don't have to draw as many. I tend to do little things like this just to up the difficulty. You can also just have more total treasures you have to go out and find. You can have fewer revealed at the same time. I actually tweak a little bit as we play the game more because it needs some of that variety, because really you don't have to cooperate, and I don't know if I've ever lost the game, and no matter how badly we played. So maybe a little too simple, but again, easy fix. Okay, so preference and type of the game. As an adult, there's not really a lot about this game. It is a kid's game. I'm probably not going to take it out unless there's kids playing with us. But I do like how it's a game that adults can actually kind of get into the strategy. They're going to figure it out pretty quickly. But you can play with the kids, and it's actually an interesting game. It's not everyone sitting around rolling and, all right, you roll. You roll. It's a little more engaging as an adult to play. I also like it because it can keep some of the fights at bay between kids. As we all know, with super competitive board games with kids, even if it's a game they have no control over, it's just random rolling, kids can get really frustrated. And there is a time for getting frustrated, realizing that, hey, we need to learn how to win, be a good winner, and a good loser. Sometimes it's nice to take out a cooperative game and say, hey, figure it out together and kind of get that team building going so it's a little less adversarial once in a while. So I do kind of like that nature of this game. That's a little more friendly. It's not that intense. It's not that scary. You're just trying to track down treasures. You're doing it together. Everyone shares their treasures at the end. So this is one of my highest recommended kids games that are out there. It is a kids game, but it's not just a stupid little random game. It actually teaches them cooperation. There's something that their brains can focus on. It's like engaging. It's a good experience for them. It has a theme. It has a cool setting. It's not just like, oh, you're the monster doing this, or you're some random, TV show character, and you're just gonna roll, move around a map, but you're the TV character. It actually gets them engaged with trying to beat the game. It's a great game to play with adults and kids at the same time because it's not so mind-numbingly boring. The adults hate it, but they can kind of get into the theme too. The pirates have funny names, and one of them has a parrot, so it's kind of entertaining. The box says ages 4 and up. I pretty much agree on it. Agree with that. I mean, if you're not going to choke on the pieces, age 3, 4, and up, it's great. It's going to work pretty well for that age group. I'd say it works until about age 8, maybe age 8, 9, 10, 11. At that point, you might want to start doing the little things to tweak it to make it more challenging. I can see giving to a group of 3rd, 4th, 5th graders who are in elementary school almost as like a project. Hey, can you beat this game? Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to make it even harder. So they have to work together and say, well, how many boats are left in there? How close to the winning the game? How many turns do we need to accomplish the things we're trying to accomplish? So I could see it kind of being used for the age group. Out of the box, I'd say ideally kind of in that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 range. It is great. Teaches cooperation, a little more lighthearted than an angry head-to-head, trying to beat up everyone leaves angry sort of game. Great game. If you have any questions about this game or the video, feel free to leave a comment down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, of course, hit a like and subscribe to the channel and you'll see more board game reviews like this and also some playthroughs.